In this video, we're going to make a start on the doors of this Mercedes R107. This particular door has a number of problems. First of all, the door stop is snapped in half and the bolts holding it on are rounded off, so we're going to have to take the door off to drill those bolts out. Secondly, one of the bolts actually holds the door hinge to the car. The back of the nut that's welded on is rounded, so we're going to have to try and get that plate out and replace it with one off the parts car. And then we're going to have a go at lining up the door. Now that we've got the soft top up, we can line the window up and putting the door handles on, the moisture traps, and then the door cards. I don't know how far we'll get in this video. We also have to put a door seal on here as well. One of the issues I've been putting off with this car is to replace the jaw check on this door. We've drilled out one of the bolts. Unfortunately, these bolts are rounded, which is why they've painted this car, I imagine, with this still in situ like that. The other bolt here is also rounded, and because of the angle of the door, you can't get a drill in there, so I'm going to have to take the door off. Before taking the door off, I'm just going to mask as best I can where the actual hinges go, just so that we get some idea of where to put the door back on. I would not recommend trying to take the door off single-handedly, because if you drop it, it's very, very heavy, but needs must. We can now drill this here out, and hopefully that will not fall down there and break the glass. We're just stepping this up now to an 8mm drill, and that should be enough. Should just about be it. Unfortunately, half the paint came off, so we're going to have to just re-prime and spray that, which is a bit annoying, but that's what comes of spraying a car with bolts still in. There we have the offending door stop. Now, I won't try and drill these bolts out completely here, because we do actually have a spare one of these from the parts car which we'll use, and you can also incidentally get these from Euro. Just drop the part number down below. The two bolts that hold the door check in are actually different. This one here is a style of bolt like this, and the one on this side here is actually a countersunk bolt like this. Mercedes part number 140-984-4229. While we've got this door out, I might as well fit the door seal, because once the door seal clips in under here on this side of the door, on the other side of the door it is glued and clipped in. It's much easier to glue it in when the door's actually out. There's nothing special about getting this door seal in. It just tucks in underneath like that. You can use a little plastic trims tool if you're struggling to get that in. The seal isn't glued in along the bottom here. It's only glued along the top where it goes around the corner. We're ready to spray this now. I've put the little trim clips in first, and I'm going to spray this side, and then we're going to spray this side here. Remember to take the masking tape off first. Now we should be ready to stick this down. That is looking good. We've just used a little piece of wood here to tap down each of these little clips as we've gone along, and then at the end here there's a black clip in there. We've used a 4.7mm times 12mm black polymide push fit from Aku. We originally bought these actually for SL55 on something we're doing, but they were the wrong size. Whilst that door is off, you should be able to see a clear passage through there. You should be able to see daylight all the way through the channel to a hole underneath. You can just about see that, and inside the sill is a little metal channel that should be bonded or welded on. Now the good thing about this car is that is all intact, but that is definitely one of the things you should check for if you're ever thinking of buying an SL, because these are often blocked up. I'm going to try something very foolish, namely to get this door on by myself, and these hinges here have little movable bits of metal which obviously allow you to align the door, and they tend to fall down, so it's extremely difficult to align the door and put it on all by yourself. In fact, it may even prove to be impossible. What I'm going to do is use a long threaded rod like this to put through the hinge, using a lower bolt here to hold that to stop it falling down, and then we'll try and thread one of the bolts in the bottom first and then a long threaded rod at the top. Often you will need to cut this pin, and sometimes it shears as well, and if your car's been painted, the new pin probably won't fit in. But this is the pin here, Mercedes part number 107-991-1307, and it also comes with a little cap that goes just there, which I seem to have lost. If you run a 7mm drill bit through there, you'll find that clears the paint and allows that pin to go in. And finally, we've got to just put one of these little special C-clips on, part number N912001006001. That slotted on without any problems. One of the reasons for not taking the door off is that it's very difficult to get all these gaps perfect again. And you can see on this door here, this is actually coming out slightly at the back here, so this needs some more adjustment. Unfortunately, when we came to put the door back on, we discovered that the threads on the nut on the back plate there are stripped. Now, behind here, inside this pillar here, is a plate like this, and there are welded on captive nuts. And what's happened previously is somebody's over tightened one of these door bolts and stripped all the threads in there. So what we're going to have to do is take off this panel here, and we're going to have to bend a bit of metal clip that holds this in place and stops it sliding down when you take the door off, and see if we can carefully insert this back inside there and bend the plate back. We're just going to support the lower end of this door, because when we take that bolt out, the door's going to want to move in this way, so hopefully that will stop the door doing that to a degree. Now, these doors aren't aligned anyway, but it goes without saying, if you were doing this yourself, you would mark around these hinges with either marker pen or tape, just so that you mark the exact position, otherwise your doors will not realign. It's obvious that somebody's been in here before, because you can see these are not the right bolts. First of all, they're two different lengths, and secondly, the bolts on the doors should be tapered at the end like that, which helps you align the doors. The good thing is that these screws manage to come out here without rounding off, because they're screwed into the metal, and it's often very rusty behind there. The scope for mucking this up is enormous. What we have to try and do is get this plate out here without dropping it down into the car, and the way I'm going to do that is just to bend this out here, and then hopefully be able to slide that out and then bend it back into position with the new one in situ. It's extremely hard to do without dropping that plate down the back of the car, but I'm going to give it a red hot go. I need to try and bend the top plate without bending the bottom plate if possible, which is really difficult to do. Okay, there we go. Okay, now we need to try and get our fingers in there. See if we can slide that up and out. Okay, there we go. So there we have the fending bracket, and the top bolt binds straight away, and the bottom one also binds. What you should have is bolts that go in and out really easily. Obviously we'll grease these, and then we'll probably sand this down and paint it before putting it back in there, and obviously take the gold paint off these bolts. This is from our parts car. Ideally you would paint these bolts red, but and we're not going to do that. We're just going to keep them silver. Well, putting on that new bracket with bolts that actually fit makes such a difference to the closing of this door. This door is practically flush now, whereas before it was coming out a centimetre, and I think it's because we couldn't put those bolts in the right place. So we're almost aligned on this door. We're just a little bit close at the bottom here and a little bit far at the bottom here, so we just need to tilt the door ever so slightly and we should be good to go. We're just going to use some of these white plastic cards to set the gap. The gap is fine up here, but you can see at the bottom here it's far too narrow, And then in the middle, the gap is absolutely fine about here. At the top, it's too narrow, and then at the bottom, it's too wide. We're gonna loosen this bolt here, loosen the bottom 2 bolts on the door, not on the chassis, and just see if we can move that door a millimeter. These panel gaps are far from perfect, but I think it's about as good as we're going to get it. This is aligned up here now, and I think the problem is, this is also pretty much aligned here, but I think the problem is that the front wing is in a slightly wrong position. It needs to just go forward and down a little bit, and that probably explains why this headlight is not sitting quite flush in there as well. So I'm not going to spend any more time trying to align this door. I'm going to leave this video here. For the first time since we've owned this car, this door now closes with the Mercedes clock. Lines up nicely, the windows line up at the top. We've still got work to do, obviously still got the wing mirrors to put on, still got the other door to do. There's a problem with this door lock here, that the key doesn't work in it, works on all the other locks, so I'm going to have to take this handle off, take the barrel out and see what's going on there. But we are making progress, slowly but surely.